You think the problem is that you do not trust yourself. That is not the problem. You trust yourself perfectly. You know things before you can explain them. Then you talk yourself out of the knowing, override it, file it under guesswork, and later you are proven right. Everyone calls this anxiety, low confidence. The explanation is not wrong. It simply does not reach deep enough. There is a kind of person who has always been here. They go by different names in different centuries. The cunning woman, the hermit, the witness, the seer, the exile. The world has tried more than once to be rid of them. The world has never managed it. If you carry one of these patterns, you already know. Today we walk into the place where the knowing turns against itself, the seer who learned to call her own sight a guess, and the bitterness that grows in the gap between what she saw and what she let herself say. You have done this so many times that you no longer notice it. Someone walks into the room and something in you reads them in a second. Not their words, the thing underneath the words. You know the deal will sour, you know the kind face is hiding something colder. And then the second movement begins. You reach for the knowing and you set it down. You tell yourself you are probably overthinking. You ask for evidence you already hold. You wait for the world to confirm what your body told you weeks ago. And when the confirmation arrives, as it nearly always does, you do not feel vindicated. You feel sick. You knew. You always knew. You simply refuse to let yourself act on it. The common name for this is self-doubt. Anxiety, a confidence wound. The self-help books tell you to trust your gut, as though you had merely forgotten how, and there is truth in all of it. Something in your relationship to your own certainty is genuinely fractured. I am not here to tell you that the explanation is false. I am here to tell you it stops too soon. Watch the shape of it more closely. You do not doubt yourself everywhere. You can be decisive about small things. You can hold firm on facts, on logic, on what can be proven on paper. The doubt is not general. It arrives in one specific place. It arrives exactly where you perceive something that has not yet become visible to anyone else. The place where you are earliest, the place where you are most often right. That is where the censor lives, and a censor that targets only your sharpest faculty is not a confidence problem. It is something far more deliberate than that. So ask when you learned it. You were not born flinching from your own sight. The flinch was installed. Think back. Every time you named what you saw, you were corrected. Called dramatic, paranoid, too sensitive, too much. Told that you were reading into things that were not there. So a child who saw clearly learned that seeing clearly cost her. And she did the intelligent thing. She got ahead of the punishment. She learned to doubt herself first before anyone else could do it for her. That is what the gaslighting actually is. You did not invent the doubting voice, you inherited it. You took the voice of everyone who needed you not to see and installed it in your own head, where it could work faster than they ever could. The self-gaslighting is not weakness. It is a survival adaptation, built by a perceptive child in an environment that punished perception. It kept you safe. It is still running long after the danger has passed, and now the bitterness. The title promised it, so we will not flinch from it. You have been taught that bitterness is a character flaw, a thing to be ashamed of. It is not. Bitterness is grief that was never allowed to be grief. It is the residue of being right and unheard, over and over, until the rightness curdles. Every time you knew and silenced yourself, and were then proven correct, a small debt went unpaid. The world did not apologize. You did not even let yourself say the words, "I knew." So the knowing had nowhere to go. It turned inward. It soured. That souring is the bitterness. It is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is evidence that something real was never witnessed. So ask the real question now. Not why do you doubt yourself? You have answered that. The real question is older and stranger. What kind of person gets punished specifically for seeing clearly? What kind of person has been feared in every century for the one thing she cannot stop doing? There is a name for her. You have met her before, even if no one ever told you she was you. She is the seer, the oldest of the patterns the world has tried to be rid of. In the myth, her name is Cassandra. We tell her story as though the curse were that no one believed her. Read it again. The curse was never blindness. Cassandra saw everything perfectly to the end. The curse was that she saw clearly and was made to carry the sight alone, disbelieved, while the thing she warned of came true exactly as she said it would. That is the seer's wound, not failing to know, knowing and being unwitnessed in the knowing. And here is the part that the myth does not say aloud. The deepest form of the curse is not when others disbelieve you. It is when you join them, when you take their side against your own sight. That is what self-gaslighting is. It is Cassandra agreeing that she was probably overreacting. What the ancients called the seer, Jung understood as nigh-dominant cognition, introverted intuition, running ahead of the conscious mind, completing the pattern before the evidence arrives. The knowing is not magic, it is pattern completion, a real and measurable cognitive process. It only looks like prophecy because most people cannot do it and have no language for those who can. So they reach for older words instead. Dramatic, paranoid, witch. Now the shadow because the gift has one. When the seer turns her disbelief inward and leaves it there, the sight rots into something smaller. Perception becomes suspicion. Depth becomes a cold superiority that says, I knew it, always too late to matter. The withdrawal becomes a sentence she serves on herself. This is the seer who has been gaslit so long that she has become her own betrayer. And the bitterness, left unmourned, hardens into the belief that seeing was always a curse and never a gift. But there is another road, and it does not run through becoming arrogant. To stop gaslighting your own knowing is not to declare yourself always right. The seer is not always right. She is simply early and accurate more often than the world can comfortably admit. To reclaim the sight is something quieter than arrogance. It is to stop colluding, to stop taking the side of everyone who once needed you blind. I want you to sit with this. The voice that doubts you is not yours. It never was. It is a borrowed voice installed long ago for someone else's comfort. You are allowed to give it back. And when you do, the bitterness finally has somewhere to go. It stops being grief with no witness. It becomes the proof of a faculty that was real all along and was only ever punished for arriving early. So return to where we began. You do not have a problem trusting yourself. You have a faculty that was punished until you learned to punish it first. The knowing was never the flaw. The flinch was the flaw, and the flinch was taught, which means it can be untaught, slowly. The way anything that grew in the dark is tended back toward the light, not by forcing certainty, by stopping the reflex that calls your sight a guess. The next time you know something before you can prove it, you do not have to act on it. You only have to refuse to gaslight it. Let the knowing stand in the room with you unargued. That is where sovereignty begins. If this has landed somewhere it needed to land, then you may already know what comes next. There are 7 Sigma INFJ archetypes, and each one carries a different gift, a different burden, a different mythic responsibility. The link in the description will take you to a free assessment that reveals yours. It takes about 3 minutes. The answer tends to land harder than people expect. And if you want to keep walking these threads with me into the deeper psychology of the Sigma INFJ, into the archetypes the world has forgotten how to name, subscribe. There are far older and stranger things still to uncover. Until next time, find your power, know your myth,